Thanks to great friend Merrill, this one is completely different. He literally cracked me open. When I finished interviewing him, he decided to interview me. And this is what came out of it. He asked, why did I start and why do I do this? What really Bloody Mavericks about? Little about my story, my crazy travel style, and hope. We talked a lot about hope. I'm Matt Mack, and this Bloody Mavericks episode is about my story. And believe me when I say, sanity went through the roof on this one, and it got really personal.
What's the driving force for you in doing this and all the effort you've put into it up until now?
My why, I believe. I went through the self kind of discovery process, and I tried to understand what's my next step in life, who I am, who I'm becoming, going through the acceptance process of my own background, and as I told you, going through being raised in really strict kind of conservative family with Catholic roots, and also in the same time being exposed to multiple cultures but not accepting my own multiculturality or the whole variety of it, and then going through that process thanks to my wife, and accepting who I am, that I have Six Nations in my veins, and I'm proud of it today, which was a huge moment for me. And till today, it's kind of sweats my eyes when I'm thinking about it. But the most important thing about this podcast and this journey is the community that I'm trying to build. My why in life is to stand up for rebels, so together we build community that we all belong to.
Wow.
And this is what I'm trying to do. Those conversations are stepping stones towards building that community, and for everyone who's listening to feel that there is a place that they can belong to.
Sounds like you've gone from resenting some of your cultural background to actually honoring your cultural background.
Oh yeah. it's kind of a lot. Yeah, it has been a super long journey for me. It goes back to my family, and my family kind of putting it on the back burner and even forgetting, and me even suppressing who I am, really, that I have a Jewish background in Poland, which is as supportive as it gets. And obviously a lot of people helped Jewish community during the Second World War and the whole Nazi concentrative camps and all the Jewish basically extinction projects of Hitler's. But to this day, a lot of people hold grudges, and there are a lot of anti-Semitist notions and people who are anti-Semitist, and I've been one of them. I was raised in that community and that society, and I don't know if it was a kid's way of suppressing and trying to fit into the mold of society, and avoiding bullying that I went through as well, that kind of suppressed because I was dealing with a lot on the bullying side and trying to go cope with that. Bringing that subject would probably eat me alive, or I would struggle. Maybe
Right.
it was a coping mechanism, I don't know, hard to say. But yeah, it's like the journey from being I'm Polish to not feeling really a Polish person, feeling first of all, being a part of Six Nations, and second of all, being a person who is from everywhere that he went to, everywhere that he lived, and every experience that he managed to have through his journey.
Wow. It sounds like you want to give others the opportunity to be proud of who they are.
Oh yeah, big time.
That's cool.
Big time. I think one of the big topics of this podcast is also for people to, as yourself, you mentioned on the beginning of our conversation today that you want to go deeper, you want to discover it. And I had a couple situations through the shows that I recorded so far that people were like, this is my aha moment. I actually need to go and kind of learn a little bit more about. I haven't been putting too much effort to it, and it is important.
Wow.
Which I believe that's the biggest payback that I can ever have. That seeing that person have that. Oh, really? Maybe I should.
And I love that you're moving the needle. You're not just talking theory. You're actually changing the feelings and the emotions and how people view themselves and people around them. And one thing I'm really inspired by with what you're doing is you're taking that kid. I think the way you shared it with me is if you could tailor make a kid that you could bully in your environment growing up and give him the right heritages to make him a target. You had most of those and then some. What a difficult environment to grow up in, and how much more beautifully you're handling that now versus what you were feeling before. So when I say you're moving the needle, when you can give other people the hope and also a little bit of guidance on how to get out of that and how to look at that in a more productive, healthy way, the growth that can come from that, we never grow without inspiring other people. True. Anytime we grow, others are going to notice it, and it's going to be a good thing. So I love that you're taking a tremendously traumatic experience and really moving that into something that can be of value. So props to you. That's not easy.
Thank you. I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, you've been an inspiration. So
thank you, Meryl. Likewise, the journey you are going through, and every hour conversation makes me want to work more on first of all, it's always been a dream of mine to go towards real estate, first of all. So that's one of the things that I want to definitely at some point. I haven't shared that probably with you, but we even started a real estate business that was our failure too. We tried doing it transborder back in Europe, but that's for another conversation. However, that's one of the things, and another, it's a huge one that I love on our conversations. It's you are day in, day out working on your communication and improving your relationship with your wife, which I'm in a big awe.
Well, you may want to get her in this chair and see if she agrees, but I certainly had a lot of work to do, and she deserves my effort. So thank you. It's big. Like I said, she's been through a lot. Our family's important to me. Where we go in the future, whatever that looks like, dealing with this tragedy is important to me, and her well-being is important to me. So yeah, I got to get up to speed. That's I've been telling myself that for 5 years since I read Chris's book, and it's every month I'm like, oh, now I finally get it now. And then there's something new. So yeah, got a ways to go, but she deserves me to put in the effort.
think that she might want to hear it, but as you mentioned earlier, it is super important at some point to realize what your gut is telling you. And so far, I haven't been wrong about the guests that I have been inviting. And my gut feeling told me from the get-go to connect with you. And every time we talk, like, I feel that you are real and you really want to do that with your wife as well. You are working on making your relationship better, but also kind of, if you guys can join forces even more and work on it even more, you're gonna be such a power couple that nobody can ever stop you. And even though it might seem like nothing, but you can go through the most difficult situations in your life that I know you are going through.
Yeah.
If you do that together.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, this student who died recently on the tennis court, that mom having someone to call, having someone to reach out to, just her deepest, darkest, that first week, you're just spinning. And to have someone in the neighborhood like Kim that she can call and talk to. And I have a funny feeling there's going to be more of those opportunities, because people in distress, people who are grieving, that's where the tribe and the community comes back into play. But yet you and I don't, we're not the people that mom wants to call. She wants to call another mom.
Yeah.
And I have a funny feeling that Kim in that role, or me in my role as another supportive member, can be a resource for a lot of people, because this world's a difficult place. We're not getting out of this unscathed. It's hard.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate that. And I do think that matters for other people down the road, that we handle this as well as we can and be there for other people as well. So
it is super important. That's all the tribe is.
Yeah.
The community, the tribe. That, as you said it in an amazing way, which I even didn't consider, I would love to help other people see that there is a way out of the most shittiest situation or the shittiest scenario that they are in. There is always a way out. You just need to find the support that you need.
Yes, and something I've realized recently is sometimes, follow me for a sec, sometimes you have to feel like there's no way out. Like all the options have to kind of blow up in your face. Sure. You're like, oh, I'll do this or I'll do this. And when you run out of options and you're like, oh shit, I don't know if there is a way out. Sometimes that's how far we have to go before the real solution comes up or manifests itself, or whatever term you want to use. Sometimes you have to run out of options before you're willing to consider an option that previously you wouldn't have considered.
That's right.
And that's where the real magic can sometimes lie.
Yep.
So don't be afraid. I would say to people, if you're being, bullied or marginalized and you're like, I'm screwed, or one of the biggest tragedies, whatever that is, don't be afraid to expire all your options and then keep looking, because you'll be surprised at what then comes up.
Yeah.
So
it's about not arriving, it's about going at it constantly, never giving up, and trying to find trying is enough.
Yeah.
But you need to keep on trying.
Yeah, even when it feels hopeless.
That's true.
Yep.
I feel that there is something else that you want to ask me too.
Well, careful what you ask for. We'll be here all night. What do you see your biggest contribution to society being?
That's difficult question.
So you have a certain set of skills and strengths. You have things that you're inherently blessed with, or you're inherently gifted. Maybe another reframe is, how will you use those to make a difference in this world? What are you uniquely wired for, that this world needs?
I don't know if I'm unique in
Or
this
what are you
sense.
good at?
I believe that me accepting who I am and accepting that there are 6 parts that I know of and how many parts that I don't know of makes me who I am, and my experiences makes me who I am. I know I love talking to people and exploring new cultures. I love digging deep into stories. I love traveling and seeing how people really are, how they are living, how they are going about the daily life. How we recently came back from Cuba and we rented a casa just in the middle of the city where locals are.
Wow.
Went in the morning to buy local fruits from local vendor, not speaking a word of Spanish. Besides googling quanta, which is how much for it, and still not understanding the numbers he was telling me, and asking him to write it on my calculator so I understand how much I need to pay him, to going to local gym where everyone was looking at us as the crazy ones because what are they doing here? Those experiences I feel are the stepping stones to really trying to grasp a new culture. It's far away from understanding it, but it is a first step, real first step. And I will join you on saying where if you are in Mexico and you are in a visiting only the resort, you haven't been in Mexico. I do agree with that. Wherever in the world you're gonna go, and if you're gonna stay in the resort, you are staying in the same bubble that you just moved from the country that you are from to that place. Nothing else is different besides you sitting in the plane, going off of a plane and going to the resort. Nothing else. And the luxury that you are giving yourself, which is fake. Because at the end of the day, what you are eating, drinking, experiencing is what you planned for. This is not what it is there. If you want to see what is out there, go and explore. Go outside that gate.
So if the local people are catering to you, that's probably not a local experience.
There is a level to that catering because obviously you need to stay somewhere. You need to eat some food. So you're gonna rent an apartment or a place or Airbnb or I'm not gonna promote wherever you need to do, but go to a local restaurant or a bar. Eat from a food vendor that is selling on the street and sit within those people, with those people in the crowd. I remember funny story from Vietnam. We've been traveling Vietnam for 3 months. We loved it, and when we started in Ho Chi Minh, then we went to Hanoi and came back to Ho Chi Minh because we loved it so much, and we rented an apartment on the outskirts kind of parts of the city by the river and by the local food market, and all the locals were looking at us, and after first days they were treating us as tourists, but month passed, through the month you can see them like, oh shit, these guys are coming back.
Wow.
Day in, day out. It's like they started you see how they start treating you differently, to the point where we sat on a bench by that river one night and we were just talking, me and Kat. She was recording something and the locals took us like, come and join us. They were sitting on a newspaper on the ground, on the pavement, drinking some local beer and eating dry fish. And they shared whatever they had with us without any expectation, just to be genuine.
Wow.
that's the part that you said as well, right? About people giving the shirt off their back and
well, they saw you making an effort. And what's funny about foreign travel, you don't have to be great at the language. You don't have to understand the entire, you just got to try.
Yeah.
You just got to put some effort into it. And they see that and they respect that so much because you're not coming there to change them or to bring your culture with you. You're coming to learn from them. And there's a high level of respect when somebody comes into our world and wants to know about our world. That's the black swan training that we were talking about. That's the travel that we're talking about. Do you see the world through my eyes? Do you give a shit about me enough to take 5 seconds and see what I see?
Yeah.
And if you do, all of a sudden the respect goes up, the dynamic changes, the vibe change, the love change. The love comes out and has room to flourish. I love everything that you're talking about because you're reciprocating and you're respecting what their culture is about enough to go learn it, to live it, just to sit in it, marinate in it, whatever you want to call it.
This is the part of, I think, the love for culture. And in a way, a lot of people can say, as you said, about first impression that you had about me being a rough and kind of serious and a kind of an asshole. Of a person.
My words or your words?
No, asshole is my words.
Okay.
But it is not easy to go outside of that box, the comfort zone, and get out there to try new things.
Yeah.
But it is crucial if you want to grow as a person.
Yeah.
That's what I believe in, and by inviting people like yourself to this show and having those conversations, I believe that this is what I am trying to offer. My interest, my curiosity, my will to help other people understand that there is a perspective, there is another way of, there are thousands, multiverses of other ways to do things. Mm-hmm. And you don't need to be stuck in your way of thinking. There is always another way of seeing things. Yeah. And I'm guilty of seeing one way only myself and being negative and being an asshole myself. I'm going through that process daily. Same thing about the communication that we mentioned earlier. Like, this is a process and it's never-ending process. Yeah. Learning is never-ending process, and that's what I'm trying to give to people through those conversations. Little bit of information and experience that other people had. Yeah. So it might move the needle a little bit.
Well, and nothing is static. There's really no, you are a certain person or you are in a certain position in life. It's constantly fluctuating. Yeah. But the growth from where you started to where you are today is really the gap that I believe we should measure. Is it's trite, it's cliche, but really I only measure against myself because that's the only indicator.
True.
I can't measure my gifts or my strengths against someone else's weaknesses or their strengths. It wouldn't be fair. Yeah. But I can certainly measure the effort. And so when you talk about that effort you've put in, when you travel, you make a concerted effort to do certain things. It's not pretty. It's not easy. It's hard. It's uncomfortable. But yet you've almost put a system in place. So when you travel, you know you will come home with a beautiful experience because you won't let yourself just go travel and take your world with you everywhere you go. You're going to go immerse yourself in their world. And that alone changes the whole dynamic. So I really respect you for that. Not everybody can do that. Most people can't or won't.
And it's funny that you said, because we were talking with my wife and she asked me, who do you think can travel like us? And so far, there is a couple that we know that does that, but they does it to such an extent that I don't think we can follow. Mm-hmm. And there are individual people that probably could do that the same way, but we also, like, I don't think there is another couple that can do exactly as we do, and I don't know if it has to be as well, right? We do it our own way, and if it works for us, we are good with that. It doesn't need to work for everybody.
Right.
It is definitely a different experience.
Yeah,
it is.
And it's so ironic. You're reminding me, I mentioned we had gone to Italy a few years ago, and we did do a cruise, and it does hit, you know, kind of the highlight spots. So there is that dynamic a little bit on a cruise. But then you do also get to immerse yourself locally if you want to.
Yeah.
You know, do you take the excursion on the ship, or do you take the excursion with some local dude? Do you go eat somewhere with a family, or do you go eat on board because you already paid for it? So one thing that I learned is we were in some pretty nice spots. We hit Rome, Capri, Sicily, the Amalfi Coast. We also hit Dubrovnik, Hvar, Croatia. When we were done, my wife said that her favorite stop along the way was Montenegro. It was probably the least affluent. It was probably the least pretty. It was probably the least polished.
Yeah.
The shutters on the windows were crooked. Cats running around. We ate with a family who had to run to the neighbors to get some extra, you know, food to round out the meal. But oh my gosh, was it authentic, you know?
Yeah.
And her speaking so highly of what some would have said, oh, that was kind of the one-off stop, or that was the stop that maybe I would have wanted to. The power went off during lunch, and it was one of the favorite, because we were outside, we already had our food. People were closing down their shops and going home because, by the way, it was the third time the power had gone off during lunch, and they just gave up. But we just sat there with our food, and we're like, this is freaking cool. Like, just us here in this moment, no phones, no power, no nothing, just a pizza, a beer, and each other. And so you've really reminded me of that, but from, you know, living with people in Chile, in their family, in their homes, in their neighborhoods, to that experience just so many times. It just makes me want to continue to repeat that. And what I like about you is you proactively seek that out. You go and do it. You don't wait for that opportunity. You know, your transportation broke down, so you had to work with the locals to get what. You don't wait for that. You actually go make sure that happens. So I'll give you props one more time on that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I think a tip on that note of doing it is, if you are going for a week, book first 2 days. That's it.
Yep.
That's what I'm doing. My wife is just asking me after, like, okay, you booked it? Yeah. How long you booked it for? Just 2 days. And she starts laughing. She knows me so well.
That's cool.
And that's how we started when we were traveling through Asia. Just booked first, I think, 3 nights in Thailand, and we knew we had months ahead of us.
Wow.
And that's how we did in Cuba recently. That's what we did in Israel.
So do you talk to the locals and ask, or do you just wait until, how do you determine during those 2 days, how are you deciding what day 3, 4, 5 look like as you go? Or is it just depends, it's different every time?
First of all, it's different every time. Second of all, my wife hates me for my spontaneity here, because I love doing decisions on the spot and finding, okay, this is not the way we want to do it. How about this? And let's do this. And she follows along. So that I need to give her props for that, 100%. And we basically first 2 days we are just walking a lot. We go 20,000 steps the first day just to walk around the neighborhood, see it,
kind of
explore, and next day do it a little bit slower, but touch some other points, and then a little bit of more, and then usually a third day we know which direction we want to go at. What we want to discover more. Do we want to stay in a city like we did, or do we want to go to the countryside and see how locals there live, and so on and so forth. Like, every time is different.
Wow. People could learn from you. It takes takes balls to do it, but oh my goodness, do you ever have a different experience coming home?
Every single time.
When you let those factors, which, you know, back to the religion thing, is God guiding you? Is the universe? Is there some force? Why did you meet that certain person on that certain day? Why did you come up to that intersection and go left instead of right? And there's books and books and books written about this, but I think to live that in the moment and say, I'm just going to go see where my path leads today. Phenomenal. I mean, entirely different experience.
It is. And my wife, funny that you mentioned it, because during our last trip, it was the first trip that we literally made friends with locals, to the point that the guy who showed up, we had the fight on the bus stop in the middle of Havana, because we were trying to go somewhere. And we didn't agree on the way how we do it, and we were stressed. I was hungry like crazy, and I'm always mad when I'm hungry. And we were trying to communicate, and it was hot. That's even harder when there are multiple levels to it. Yeah. But then we are leaving the station, and this guy comes up to us. Do you need a taxi? Or in Spanish, do you need a ride? And I asked him how much, and I was resentful because I was angry already. I was like, fuck this, I'm gonna. And he was like, yeah, how much? And he said, okay. And he was the first one who gave us reasonable price, which I was super struck by it. I was like, wow. Oh, he doesn't want to gouge us. Amazing. 100%. Okay, let's go. During the ride, we connected so that he was driving us around all the way. Then when we were going outside of the town, he figured out another transportation and back, and then to the airport, around, whatever. He was the guy I was calling when I needed anything.
Wow.
Because of one of that connection. And he showed up in the moment when we really needed it.
Interesting. And he also knew how you needed him to show up. He didn't go there with you. He didn't jump on that emotional roller coaster. He just could see that you guys needed someone to show up at that particular moment. So I'm constantly blown away by how those moments, and travel really brings that to the surface.
Oh yeah.
There is some force out there, call it what you will, that's guiding this whole thing, and pretty hard to argue that there's not. What that is or what that means, I think every person has to decide.
Oh yeah.
But you can't look back and say it's all coincidence, right?
No, it's not. And there are so many stories about that on the travel. I think all the experiences that we had that we should quit so long ago, doing what we are doing and exploring the way we are exploring. For instance, we took a bus in Thailand, from north of Thailand to was it to Bangkok? I think so. And no, sorry, it was in Cambodia. We just crossed the border, which was horrible experience by itself. We didn't know what's going on. Nobody knew. Nobody was communicating. We managed to cross the border. We took a bus to the city that we wanted to go to, and that bus, we were sitting on the plastic seats in the middle of the rows because there was no seats. And that bus stopped halfway, and we didn't know where we are. Wow. We didn't know it's halfway. We didn't know if we arrived or not. And the driver couldn't communicate anything. We couldn't communicate with him. He just took our bags from the bus and threw it away.
Set them outside.
And didn't communicate anything. And I was furious. I was like, what's going on here? Why? We don't know where we are. We don't have anything. Then a dog came and pissed on one of the backpacks, and I was like, But that experience taught us so much about being flexible, and at the end of the day, it's gonna be all right. We're gonna figure it out. We are not in Antarctica. If the worst comes to shove, we can sleep on the bench through the night, and next bus gonna come, we're gonna jump on it. And guess what? Half an hour or an hour later, next bus comes, comes over, and it's going where we're supposed to go. And that guy was trying to communicate that to us, but we couldn't understand anything.
So you needed to catch a different bus, but you didn't.
That was a connection. The buses were going halfway, and then another bus was going the other halfway.
Wow.
But they weren't at the same time, and nobody knew, nobody could communicate. So that's another code.
And isn't that life in relationships? One person's trying to say something and be relatively helpful, and the other one's like, "Wait, I didn't catch that," and taking.
And you can speak the same language.
Yeah.
And not hear what other person is saying.
Yeah, 100%, right? Wow. So back to, and one more plug for Chris Voss is sometimes they need to be heard first so that they're relaxed enough or open enough or willing to hear you.
Yeah.
So that's such a magic, the language barrier that you faced is a different one, but when we're speaking the same language, we can't hear each other. Stop, put down the argument, hear what they're saying, and enunciate or speak to what they're saying. Demonstrate that you hear them. See if it doesn't change where they're at and how well they're willing to hear you. And that whole things happen for a reason. And wow, travel will definitely pound that into your head. It's funny. I coming here yesterday. I think I was mentioning to you, I didn't book accommodations or anything until the day of, and I requested one, and I thought, okay, that'll be good. It'll be fairly close, blah, 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 kind of what I need. Then on one of my flight connections, I checked it again. It's like, sorry, not available. And I'm like, shit, that was the best one. That was the one that fit what I needed, right?
Yeah.
And so then the one that I ended up with, I think the house is probably 3 times nicer. It's 3 times closer to the transit stop. It's phenomenal location. They're shopping, and everything about the one that I ended up with versus the one that I thought I wanted is better from what I could see and what I've experienced so far. Example after example after example. But just that mental flexibility. I think life is here to teach us to get out of our own way sometimes. We get this preconceived notion. Does it ever turn out like we think? No. So what if we just get over ourselves and just let the flexibility be a part of... My wife has a really good friend, lifelong friend, that's really good at this. It's maddening sometimes that things always just work out for her. Well, there's Candace again. But she is amazingly flexible mentally, and she's amazingly trusting that it's going to be okay, and it usually is. So who's the one making it harder than it has to be? That's kind of me, right? That I usually do. I need to learn from people like that more. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
And it's a wrap. We dare you. If you are bold enough, hit subscribe, repost the rebellion, and don't miss out on next week's episode. It's going to be bloody brilliant. See you on the next one.